Hi guys, this is my first tutorial that I'm going to be doing on Node.js. This is my introduction, and I'm Jeff Potter. You can get me on Twitter at jpots18. So let's get started. Okay, I already told you who I am. What I'm trying to do is this is just a simple tutorial, basically give you the essentials of understanding where Node came from, when it should be used, kind of the history behind it, and some cool things that it can do. So I'm going to be creating a series of these tutorials, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me on Twitter. And if you have any issues, meaning, hey, you spelled this wrong or whatever, just put that on GitHub on the issues tracker, and I'll get to it. So my code and these slides, they're all going to be on this GitHub. Let me show you it really quick. So here's github.com. You'll see jpots18, no tutorials. And this is what I meant by issues. If you just click in here, you can see right here's where I would say click new issue. Hey, fix this, you bozo. So, yeah, that's right. All right. Then submit it, and then I'd get pinged, and I can come look at it and resolve it. Anyways, let's go back. So just to clarify, I'm just trying to give these tutorials, and they're not going to be perfect, and I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm doing the best I can, and I've tried really hard to get to the facts and give you guys a really good, I guess, essentials of what you need to create Node applications and to deploy them. So first of all, where did Node.js come from? It actually has some surprising inspiration. When I was thinking it, I was like, wow, this revolutionary guy, he just came up with this amazing idea. What was behind all of it? And then I was kind of disappointed. Yeah. It's the loading image, actually, from Flickr. And what Ryan Dahl, the creator of Node, was thinking was he's asking, while he was uploading, the browser had to keep asking the web server, hey, am I done yet? Hey, am I done yet? Hey, am I done yet? And it would have been a lot easier to have a push system where the browser just said, hey, it's finished. And so he started thinking more about push technologies. And what I mean by push technologies are technologies where, like Gmail, where you all of a sudden receive a new message, and without refreshing, the content just changes on the page. So that was his inspiration. And so what he did is he looked around and he started trying to find a good way to do push technologies, and he tried writing some in Lua and Haskell and C, but eventually he stumbled across Google's open source V8 engine, and he hadn't really thought about using V8, and so he looked into it just like we're doing, and he saw that it's an open source JavaScript engine. And so what it does actually is you can pull, it's written in C#, and you can actually run it as a standalone. And so from basically that right there, he decided that he was going to embed it and basically write a platform. So a platform that he could use to get his push, his push technology working using JavaScript. And so the V8 engine, the project behind that was Google's attempt to speed up the Chrome browser and how it would parse through the DOM, and it's really, really fast. It's what makes Chrome load so much faster than most of the other competitors. So he started writing this Node.js platform, and so I'm going to explain a little bit more what I mean by that. So on the masthead, or on the whatever you call it, the home page for Node, what it says is that Node.js is a platform. And what they mean by platform is it's a set of technologies and a set of code that basically runs and you can build things off of. And that's a lot different. A lot of people just say, hey, Node, yeah, it's JavaScript on the server, or it's really fast JavaScript or something like that. They just don't. They need to understand that it's a platform. Node itself is the platform, and it's built on the runtime, like we talked about, for building easy, fast, scalable network applications. And then it also, because of the way that V8 works and using JavaScript, Node had to do some different, use a little bit different architecture, and so it's an evented, non-blocking I/O architecture, which we'll talk about more in the future. Basically, event-driven means that there are two processes only that are going on in a web server. It's listening and it's handling events. And non-blocking I/O basically means that you don't have something waiting while the other one is trying to get in and do the same thing. They work. They don't block each other, and I'll explain that to you later. And basically, it's used to make lightweight and efficient, perfect for data-intensive real-time applications that run across distributed devices. So if you just sum it all up, it's a platform, and it has some special ways that it works. And this is all taken from Node.js homepage. If you want the simple answer, it's JavaScript on the server, but that is the wrong answer. So what makes up the Node.js platform then? The platform is actually made up of a bunch of modules. They're also known as packages. Some people like to use the word packages. I'm just going to call them modules for the sake of this. The modularity of Node is one of the things that's actually it's attributed to its success as how it was built from the beginning. And so what do these modules look like? I just took this from the documentation for Node.js. So this is nodejs.org, looking at their API documentation. What they do is they have different levels of stability. It's still under development, so you need to make sure when you use these different parts of the platform that you don't choose something that looks like this, meaning don't rely on it, or that's experimental, because it will probably change. When I wrote my first Node.js app, we were 0.8, and 3 months later when I finished the project, it was 0.10. Node itself is considered stable, but some of the functions that it has are not. So just keep that in mind. Basically, these are the platform modules or platform packages. You have assertion testing, which is just like making sure that something is equal to the other, but that's built into the actual platform. And notice that stability is locked, so it won't be changing anymore. If you're familiar with testing code, these should be pretty common. So that's one of the modules. What else do they have? They have a C add-ons. This is pretty cool. You can actually link in libraries and run them with Node, which is pretty awesome. This can be used for things that are a little more like data intensive. They have child processes, so you can actually spawn other processes on the processor. And clusters if you use a bunch of Node instances, and console is a good one. This is how you're going to log out information. So the most common one here is log, console.log. It prints a new line, and there's also info, error, and so on. So I hope you kind of get the point of what's going on inside of Node. It's this platform. There's a bunch of modules like crypto for whatever, OS, path, and these things. And they basically just help you write applications on top of, or using JavaScript on top of that runtime. Some other ones that I mentioned in here, you can read through them. File system's one to look at. You'll probably need that. And that's mainly it. So let's keep going. All right. JavaScript is really expressive. You don't need very many lines to do a lot of things, and that was one of the really powerful things about when Ryan introduced this during his initial presentation. He actually got a standing ovation for this. It's a 5-line web server. So let me show you what it's made up of. This is just a little code snippet. So we're using the Node.js module from the module system. So this very first line, we're using var to create a place in memory to hold an HTTP object. This require method is actually in the globals of the Node platform. And let's look at what it does. This is really important. So what it will do is it will load a module into an object, basically. And this is used a lot throughout Node.js. You need to understand what's going on. Notice there isn't any like path or anything right here. It's just HTTP. And HTTP, because we know it's a core platform module, we don't have to do anything like telling Node where to go to find that. It just knows how to pull it in, and I'll explain that. You'll see using some other modules later. So the next thing we do is after we have an HTTP object, we create a server called this create server function, and we pass in a function object. This might be kind of confusing to you. This is a callback if you're familiar with JavaScript. And basically what will happen is we'll call this, and then when it's finished running the create server function, it's going to pass back a request object and a response object that we'll be able to act on. So here's the example. So after you run the create server function, it comes back and it passes this request. So anytime that you have a web server, you're dealing with requests coming to it and responses going from it. And so this request, you pull it in and you can actually look through the request. Let's look at what this does. This is the HTTP module on the Node platform or the Node documentation. So here's some examples of what you can do using a response or a request. They sometimes shorten it to RES or REQ. Actually, they do that a lot. So just keep your Q's and S's straight, or you'll be in lots of trouble. So here's an example of looking at the response object and pulling off like a status code. Here's some other options that you have inside of the http.request method. Here's some things. Anyways, this is documentation. You can read through that when you need to find out what's going on. So what's the rest of this thing doing? What it's doing is it gets the request, doesn't really do anything with it. If you're posting a JSON or something, then you could say request.body, and you could get the body of it and be able to go through the JSON and be able to interact with it just like normal JavaScript, which is one of the awesome things about Node. And what we're going to do is get the response and call the write head function. And so this is just saying basically write a header on this response, and the header is going to have a 200 status code, and the actual header is going to be content type text plain, just telling the browser what to expect and what's being transported. So in case you don't know what this 200 means, I'd really recommend looking over HTTP status codes. I linked this to a really nice little cheat sheet where you can just type in like, oh, the server gave me an error and it was a 404. What does that mean? Not found. Oh, okay. So what status codes are is a really quick and terse way of saying you either were successful or you failed, and here's a really simple reason why. So 200, anything that starts with a 2 means success. Anything that starts with a 4 means error. Anything that starts with a 5 means a server problem. I think 3s are redirects, and you can look at the other ones. So we're going to write the head. We're going to write the words hello world, and then that end is going to shoot it back, and then we're going to listen on this port. So there you have it in 5 lines of code. You have a server that's listening, taking responses in, writing headers, and sending it back. So, I mean, this was really revolutionary, especially when it was presented. And it's one of the reasons that lots of people are adopting Node is because it's so easy to get a lot done with just a little bit of code. All right, so that's cool. We have a server, but I mean, I don't just need something to listen and respond. I need it to do something that's a real life application. So let's say we want to pull in a CSV and store it in a Mongo database and then send an email. I don't know, maybe this is like an app that reads through box scores and does some manipulation and then sends emails to people, to like the top movie producers or something. So how am I going to do the CSV? Was there a Node thing for CSV? Doesn't look like it. Nope. So what that means is maybe we should look for a different third-party module. And Node has a ton of third-party modules that are all hosted on npmjs.org. So let's look at what npmjs.org is like. All right, here we are, Node packaged modules. So here's some of the most popular and most starred and things like that. But what's really valuable is searching in here for something like just CSV. That's what we need to do for our application. All right, there we go. We have some results. We have one for comparing CSVs, one for basic CSV, transform, node CSV. I mean, we're still going. How many pages do we have? Lots of pages of CSV. All right, so that should be right there an indication that there's a lot of them and you need to be careful which ones you choose. If you choose the wrong one, you can end up really hating yourself when you go down the wrong path and you're like, wow, it doesn't do what I want it to do. So just make sure you get the right functionality that you want. Some things that I like to do is once you think, hey, CSV is probably the exact one I'm looking for, check this right here, the downloads in the last day. If something's been downloaded 1,746 times in a day, it's usually pretty good. And then the month, 27,000, that's pretty awesome. I like to check if it has good documentation, how they use it. Just to kind of read through this, make sure it's what you want. Look how many contributors. That means there's probably been a lot of features added and lots of work done, basically. And then another thing I like to do is check the GitHub. Oops. Let's go to here. 527 stars is actually really impressive. So if something has that many stars, that's another kind of, I guess, quick test to see if it's a good module. And then, so there we have it. We have this CSV module, and we think we know which one we want. All right, so what about the database? So we go back and we search npm.js, and this is one I kind of pre-looked through, and this one's called Mongoose. Once again, this one's 4,000 times. Looks like a great module. Notice the version number too, 3.8.4. That means there's been lots of work. This guy has like 1 billion modules. If he's touched it, it's usually good. This guy as well. And what about sending an email? So sending an email, I don't know if you've ever done it in another language. It's usually really, really tedious to set it up and make sure everything's working right. This is an awesome mail transport, and this is all you have to do. It's really similar. So this require, just like we required HTTP, we're requiring node mailer, and we're going to store it in this object. And then we're going to create basically do node mailer.createTransport SMTP. Service is Gmail, auth is this, and we'll create a transport object. And then from that, we'll be able to write what we want in our email, who it's to, from, subject line, text, and you can actually do HTML right in here. And then we're going to take these mail options and this SMTP transport, and we're going to send the mail and the mail options. And then what we'll get back after we send it is this function. We'll either get an error or a response. This is this is, like we said, callbacks are everywhere in Node. So this is a really good example of how that works and how you'll see it used in other modules. So if we get an error, then right here it's going to say, if error, console.log it out. If it's not, then we're going to say message successfully sent or something like that, so that we can look through our logs and they actually mean something. All right, so enough with that. I think you've seen where npm.js is, but let me just show you how you install one. So I'll actually just, so I'm just gonna clear this out. So I'm just gonna make one here just for the sake of it. So if I want to install one, when you install Node, you also have a thing called npm set up, and you can use the npm install command, and then you just find the module that you want from npmjs.org, and you can say csv, which is the one we want, --save. And using this --save is awesome because what it's going to do is, once you do this, goes out, grabs all your dependencies. You'll see there's this node modules right here. And so it basically goes and saves it and puts it in node modules for you. And it will also create, once you have your project up and going, it will create your package.json. And then we can also go npm install. The other one was called mongoose. Mongoose save. It's going to go and grab that, pull it in, so it's hitting npm registry. You'll notice registry.npmjs.org. It's loading anything that it needs to run. It loads those dependencies and it will save them. And so see this folder right here? We have one called node modules. So node modules, that's a little bit hard to understand. Node modules, basically, if I go into there, you'll see there's CSV and Mongoose. So node modules is where these dependencies are downloaded and placed. You typically don't want to put node modules in a repo. You can just basically run npm install and whatever and pull all the ones that you need. So back to here. Once you hit save, it usually writes them into a package.json file. And here's just kind of what is a cheat sheet for what you should have in package.json. Write the name of it, the author, description. This one's important. So if you run npm start, you will call this function on the command line. It just basically wraps this and do it. So you can, it's a nice way of doing just typing npm test, npm start, rather than node.bin, whatever, HTTP server. It's just a lot of work for not a lot of good. And licenses and other dependency stuff. So when you do npm install --save, what it will do is throw that dependency. So this would be like CSV instead of plates. And then it will write the current one that I just downloaded, the version number. Once again, just make sure you choose good modules, because that's really what a lot of this is based on, or a lot of the performance and the success of your application will be how good your modules are. All right, so now we've learned what it is, where it came from, and kind of how to use it. So when should you use Node.js? I think I have a friend that always says JSON is God's gift to APIs, and I kind of agree with him. And so if you're trying to, if you want to write a JSON-based API, I think Node is an awesome platform to use. If you're going to use a single-page web app, such as like think like Pandora or Gmail, where there's just JavaScript and it's waiting for events, and then it when it gets a new one, it will reload and do all that manipulation. It's a great one for that. It's a really nice way to decouple your API and your basically just so that you don't render your content out, so that it can be reused through a mobile app or whatever. Another thing that it's good for is Unix tools. So if you want to use something like ImageMagick or another Unix utility, it's really nice and really easy to just create a new process on the processor and manipulate an image and save it. It's also really easy to stream data. If you're, for example, if you want to pull in Twitter's live stream, which is called the Firehose, it's really easy to hook up to that and just pull it in as a stream rather than as a like a flat file, and Node will handle that for you. Another thing is real-time applications. Just an interesting thing is just think about this right here, soft real-time. I wouldn't go and build an entire really complex real-time application or promise amazing real-time abilities when you're using a dynamic or a language that's dynamic or that's interpreted. There's going to be people that will basically say you're an idiot, and they'll say Erlang's the best, and they'll argue, and then you can let them do whatever they want. But if you're just doing something simple like maybe a chat application or some way to like refresh and show another user that you're on it, it's awesome. I mean, you can write a chat application really quickly, and that's actually what I used to get started when I was learning. And so let's look at some bad use cases. So anything that's CPU heavy, that's just going to be crunching tons of data or processing videos or something like that, you're not going to get the power that you need. You're going to want to go with more of a statically typed or static typed language, so that you can it'll give you better speeds. We did see though that you can use like your C++ add-ons or whatever, so you could write that video processing thing in C++ and still have Node run it. But in general, I mean, you wouldn't want to do all your processing in JavaScript. A bad use case, if you're just going to make something simple like create a blog or something like that, it's not the best use case for it. To be honest, just create, read, update, and delete. It's not really what it's used for. It's used more for the service-oriented architecture and single-page web apps like we talked about. Another bad use case is just being like, ooh, shiny. You shouldn't just go for the hot technology because it's the new girl in the room. You need to understand what you're doing and why you're going to do it. And it's different, so it takes a little bit of getting used to, but just make sure you use it wisely. I mean, I think these are awesome. I mean, there's nothing better than getting in JSON and not having to parse it or anything, and just being able to act on JSON in a native way. This is taken from nodeguide.com. This is an awesome resource as well. You can go check it out. Basically, what he has is a beginner guide, style guide, community guide, convincing the boss. That's where I took that from. But style guide's really nice. It tells you a little bit like tabs and versus spaces, editors, braces. Anyways, if you're really wondering how to write good readable code, I recommend Felix's Node guide. And yeah, let's get out of here. Okay. Whoa. Easy there. Okay. So I hope what you're saying right now is, wow, Node is awesome. And it's built on a super fast JavaScript runtime. It's a platform, not just JavaScript on the server. It consists of modules, or packages, some people call them. And besides just these platform modules, there's a really great list of third-party modules that you can use. Just remember, Node.js is good at some things and it's bad at others. Just try and utilize its strengths and avoid some of its weaknesses. And yeah, I hope that was pretty easy and simple for you guys. I think that gave you a good overview of where it came from. And so the next topics that we're going to discuss are what's really event-driven architecture. It's important to understand this because otherwise you'll run into a lot of gotchas. It's a lot different from PHP or Ruby or lots of languages. And we're also going to cover non-blocking I/O and scalability. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them on GitHub under the issues or tweet me at jpots18, and I'll try and get back to you guys as quick as I can. So until next time, take care and happy coding.